What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Best Foot Forward podcast. It's me, Vic, from Say La Vic, and today I have with me...
Ann Duskus of Studio Duskus. Welcome.
Welcome back.
Welcome to our podcast.
So, Ann, what are we going to talk about today?
Okay, Vicky, I want you to ask me what you asked me before we started this episode.
Oh, yeah. I was doing a little bit of reflecting, and I was like, Ann, I feel like this is the time, it's so weird. This is the time of year when we start reflecting on what we did. And again, in the last episode, we were saying time has escaped us and we are near the end of the year. And one of the things during our last episode that kept coming up and, we kept asking ourselves, I think is related to what I asked you right before we started. So what is, you think, one of the most difficult things that you've done this year?
That wasn't what I was referring to, but
what did I ask you before? Oh my God,
and how
not
are you
on the same
feeling?
track. Oh yeah,
No.
Okay,
No, I mean, they're pretty much leading to the same place.
Yeah,
but
we can start with that. We can start with how you're feeling. Tell me how you're feeling right now.
I mean, I am feeling a little bit sort of it's weird. I have this feeling of unsure about the future, but I am also sure about the future. That sort of conflict and tension thing going on right now.
Okay.
And I think that leads to your other question. It's what is the hardest thing you've done this year?
Okay.
And I think the short answer is the hardest thing that I've done this year so far is simply just trying to be a solopreneur. Mm-hmm. That is all things aside, that is the hardest thing that I've done. Building new concepts, learning how to use a new tool, making a shoe for a client, coming up with an idea. Some of that is hard, but none of that is nearly as hard in comparing to trying to make it as a business owner.
I feel like that's such a good one because really that's everything that we complain about, we talk about, we are obsessed about is how do we get this business going? What do we do in order to, get our work out there? What do we do to get clients? And then how do we get keep making our own work and be productive and do 50 billion things all at once? Today you had an admin day, a strategizing day. And that's literally all you do all day, right? You have to take a lot of time out. You don't just sit here and make things, you're not like a factory just pumping things out and it's you working in your corporate job where everybody has their own role. Mm-hmm. In this case, now you are doing everything all at once and it has to come together for your business to succeed.
Yeah. I mean, before I dig into that though, do you have any right off the top of your head?
That's such a good one.
That's really hard for you so far.
Oh gosh. For me, it is doing my own thing.
What does that mean?
Okay, so where I started in Disney. There's a lot of that stuff. And I think I've sprinkled this every now and then, or anybody talks to me, this is the first thing I'll say. It's so hard for me, somebody who never called themselves an artist, to do things purely creatively. This code switch has been really difficult for me. How do I go from a really technical background to now I have to be creative all the time? I have to keep think of and a lot of times it's not hard per se, or it's not effort, but I really have to put aside everything that I feel everything that's in my comfort zone and step outside of it. I think that's the hardest thing, is how do you stay outside of your comfort zone? It's one thing to be one project I'll do something different, that's one thing. But I feel this entire year I have been in a state of discomfort in all aspects of it.
Right.
Yeah.
But is that a bad thing or a good thing?
It's not a bad thing.
Okay.
It's
I
not
just
a bad
want to
thing.
come from that.
Yeah, but it gives me that feeling of I'm so certain that this is good for me, but then at the same time, it's discomfort. So I'm literally sitting here kind of not knowing what to do, feeling a lot of new things, a lot of anxiety, a lot of overthinking, a lot of insecurities about am I doing the right thing? But yes, like my heart is very strongly in one direction, yet there are so many things that on the day-to-day you kind of have to worry about. Finances, growth, and all of that stuff. So I feel like it's not a bad thing, but it's scary.
Oh my God,
It's a
so
good
scary.
kind of scary.
I mean, that's exactly what I was saying when I started. It's like, I'm kind of uncertain, but I'm certain, like you're certain about what you want to do and what you know or you think should be doing, but you're uncertain about what and where that will take you.
Yes, exactly.
And I think, but then at the same time, like we don't know until we do it. And so we have to do it.
Yep.
Despite our discomfort with it.
Yeah. And it's a totally different experience. You can sit here and you can formulate what it means to do something. Like you can sit here and be like, okay, step 1 to step 10, this is how it's going to go down. And then when you actually do it, you'll realize like so many hiccups along the way, things that you couldn't have ever even expected happens. And everything just takes its course. That's life, right? Like it's not always predictable. But you think, we always say, oh yeah, this thing is going to take us 2 days, and then it takes us 2 weeks, right? Even simple things like that, you don't realize exactly how much it takes until you actually get started and do it, and actually do the thing that you're setting out to do.
Yeah. So I want to get a little vulnerable for a second,
Yes.
with you and with our audience, because I think this is so important. I think this is just like the reality of trying to make it as a business, as a founder, as a business owner. I was here, so like I'm typically here on the weekends, and so I was here, I think, always on Saturdays and sometimes on Sundays.
And it doesn't take holidays. Like there isn't really like, if I'm like, hey Ann, Monday's a holiday, are you gonna be here? Yeah, I'm gonna be here. You're always here. That's the reality of being, like what you said, a business owner, a solopreneur. You have to,
But then again, I love what I do, so I have no problem with that. Yes, like of course I'm going to be here. But then I was here on Saturday, and I had a really tough day. And I think all week I was having a really tough week, and I think it was just one of those things where like it was catching up to me, and I was feeling burnt out, and I didn't know that I was, and so. I think it was like, Saturday I was here, and then I got home on Saturday night, and then typically when I get home, like my dog welcomes me home. It's like the best energy. And then I say to my husband, and he's like, oh, how's your day? And then I literally sat there and like started getting teary eyes, know? And he was like, what's wrong? And I was like, honestly, like today was a really tough day for me because most days I don't feel this way. Again, like I'm a very self-sufficient, independent woman.
yeah.
That turned off. I don't know if it's cool.
Not cool.
Okay. I saw it in my peripheral. It might be okay.
I mean, it's still recording.
Yeah. I think that happened before, but yeah.
You know what? It's still recording. Let's just keep going.
Okay, yeah.
That's just the screen for us.
I feel like that's happened before. Yeah, okay. So we'll just we'll edit it out. Okay. Yeah, so then most days I'm fine. Like I'm a very self-sufficient, independent woman, and I don't have this like deep desire of having to have someone around, meaning that like I don't have to have coworkers. Like if you're not in here, like okay, it's totally fine. I'm fine. I'm fine by myself. But I think it was just like I've been sort of, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes as far as like planning for my business, from now through the end of 2023. Like I'm planning that far, and I'm looking at all the things on my list, and I knew they were coming, but it was really overwhelming. And I think there is this like nature that I have to where like I can convince myself that like, I'll deal with it. Like no problem. Like, we'll figure it out. But then I think on Saturday I was just like, man, like I was like sitting here working on like a physical project, and then And I just remember like thinking to myself as I was like cutting, I'm like, it kind of feels really lonely today. And I think what I figured out, what it was when I got home and I was telling my husband about it, I was like, like this like entrepreneur journey is really lonely.
It's a very
at
lonely
times.
one. Yes.
Yeah. And then so especially, when you start to call yourself a solopreneur, like you're literally by yourself.
Yeah.
And so I think like it kind of hit me to where I didn't realize I was so overwhelmed by it and I found so much discomfort in it to where it was getting me really emotional, And so hence the reason why I had to eat a big fat steak the next day.
It all makes sense.
I had to eat my feelings.
Yeah, you were telling me that over the weekend you had a steak, and I'm like, okay, good that you're like celebrating, and and what a great pick me up, just to be able to do that. And I feel like what you're saying is like it touches me as well, and I'm so glad that you are sharing this with us because it's true. I think everybody that's starting their own business, it feels like starting your own business is one of those things where it's not like going in for a job. When you're going in for a job, you have people around you, you have colleagues, you have teammates, you have people that are supporting your role, and there's a whole organization coming together. Being a solopreneur means that you need to figure everything out. And a lot of times, like the wins are totally all yours, but also like all of that hardship that you've had to go through to establish it, we can talk anybody's ear off about anytime somebody starts this conversation with me, I'm like, oh my God, I can go off. I can go on and on and on about how difficult it is. But it's really just yourself at the end of the day doing it until you get to a point where you can have more people in your business. But it is lonely. And I feel like, in your defense, you've had to consider a lot of things. There are going to be huge changes, coming up for good, like a lot of them for really good reason.
Yeah.
But it's scary and it's overwhelming and almost like, okay, but Anne you have such a strong shell that I feel like it makes me so happy when you do share your vulnerability with me and, with the podcast, because it makes you more human to me. Like you're super Anne about 98% of the time. And then those 2% is like, okay, reminds me that yes, she's like the most hardworking and like just passionate person, yet there are these days when they're just like off days, but when you get a little bit overwhelmed by emotion and all of these things, which is totally normal. And, I could try to be in, you just call me.
No,
you call me. I could be
so
here.
Sweet. No, but I think it's just like, I feel like maybe I like to think that there are a lot of people out there who are like me, and I think there's a part of you who is like that too, because I think we as children of immigrants, we feel like there's this responsibility that we have to be better than our previous generation, that we have to make them proud, that there's all these sort of unspoken pressure that we have. Nobody's holding us accountable for it but ourselves. That adds another layer of just like challenges, and I think... So I think like what I sort of learned from this experience over the weekend is that I think I was really internalizing like what and how I was feeling the past week or the past 2 weeks, or the past month, for all that matters. But I think until I reached sort of like, and I think, Saturday was like my breaking point, where it's like, okay, there's the last straw on the camel's back, and not that like I was like completely destroyed by it, but then it helped me recognize like sort of where I am, like what space and what state that I was in. That I was like, I was going to come work on Sunday. I was like, you know what? Like, can't. Like, let me just like not do any work today and just kind of take a step back and take a breather and like spend time with my family. And yeah, and today is a brand new day.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like it's so important to get that recharge over the weekend too. And I think this speaks to, all of this weight that you have on your shoulders that's invisible. Things stack on top of it's like what you're saying, the straw that broke the camel's back. It's not one trigger that did this to you. It's like a combination of a lot of things. It's an accumulation of things that happen over a period of time. And sometimes it's really important just to have that one day, just to do nothing but, go home, make food, bake, get your life in order before you can come to work and just give it your all again. Because like Anne is here from early morning, like 7 o'clock, maybe even earlier sometimes, to like 6 or 7 at night, and that's a long day. And over again, doing that for a long stretch of time, you can get burnt out before you even know. And, certain things, it's like, I feel like, remember when I sent you that text message where like one person commented something negative?
Yeah.
It's like those things so often can just like snowball into like the biggest, party pooper, and you just don't feel any motivation to do anything anymore. And I think that's just the reality of being a solopreneur is you deal with those things, and it's the ebbs and flows of it. And, I think it's important though, like those things remind you that what you're doing is not easy, right? A lot of other people from the outside will look at you and be like, why aren't you doing better? Why aren't you making more sales? Why aren't you doing this? Like a lot of people are like, well, I think the sentiment from outside, and I don't know if this is true, maybe this is like me internalizing everything, but the sentiment is your job is so easy. Why aren't you doing more? Why aren't you doing better? And the truth is it's not. There's so many things that you have to take into consideration. And at the end of the day, the most important thing is you're doing what you love.
Yeah, and I think to what you're just saying now, Vicky, like we can go on and on about the reason why what we do looks so easy is because it took so much effort to make it look so easy.
Yes.
And I think that's sort of another layer of pressure that we sort of have to deal with. Because if we're just talking about it strictly from a business perspective, and again, going back to the numbers game on social media, like we're always trying to comp like the last post, the last reel, the last whatever it is, and again, nobody's telling us that we have to do that. But then it's like, okay, if I'm trying to grow my business, then that matters,
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do you beat a viral video? You don't. Like, that just, that doesn't happen,
Right.
And so it's just like, oh man, it's so crazy. Like, okay, so let me ask you, like, is there anything that you can think of? I know like you can relate to what I just talked about, because running a business is really difficult. Is there something else that's like on the top of your mind, like where you feel like you've had a hard time with this year?
I think so. And again, I feel like we're beating a dead horse here because it's the same issues, but progressively each year. It gets a little easier, but it's still very difficult for me. Another thing is discussion of like compensation. That has always been such a difficult topic for me. And this year, with the whole change in, how I'm running my business and what I want to do in the future, that's like reoccurring, and I'm finding like new ways to kind of rationalize why I need to ask for certain amounts or negotiate certain amounts. And I think one thing that happened this year was there have been several proposals of projects that might not have gone through. And it's because, I will say, for example, like I need this much. This is how much I need in order to fulfill the job that you're asking for, right? Because I have a lot of overhead. I'm doing this full time. This is by hourly. This is a fair rate for me. And already I'm like giving them a very conservative estimate because again, these things take a lot longer than what people expect you to spend 3 days doing it and they want to pay you for 3 days. But really it takes a lot of time for you to think about it, for you to execute, for you to, do all the edits and then deliver your assets at the end of the day. And that's constantly something that I have to figure out. And I actually have right now a project that I'm still thinking about how to give people like pricing. And I'm like, at this point, I really should have this down. But it's an ongoing thing. Yeah.
Is there anything that you've been doing differently to help you sort of get through this hump or this conflict that you have with yourself?
For me, it's the only thing that I've had to do differently is explain to myself why that was a good idea to not take a project that doesn't pay me well. Because taking something on that, this goes back to, our saying no episode, but really the consequences of doing that, if you take on a project that you don't get paid really well, you're suffering for the next however many months because we get paid per project and we have to pay for rent, we have to pay for our living expenses for the next couple months, dependent on that project. And so I feel like it's like a lot longer lasting. And even though I say no to those projects, it only makes me appreciate and opens up my schedule to bigger projects that come along the way. And I think that's the one thing that I'm kind of surprised at still to this day, but like I feel very grateful for is that when you meet the right people and they're sort of, they always have your back and they have you on their mind, things will keep popping up. Be like, hey, Vic, I know we didn't get to do that project, but how about this one? And that's like the saving grace for me because I'm like, okay, I'm still kind of relevant. People still want to work with me, even though I'm like, I charge a lot, like, and that's
Vicky,
the one
you
thing.
don't charge a lot because
I don't charge
that's a
enough.
mindset that like we need to do another pricing episode because I feel like so much has happened and changed, but you don't charge a lot. Like I want us to stop saying that we charge a lot.
Right.
We charge what we're worth.
Okay? It's like, I agree. I totally agree with you. I don't even charge enough, which is why I have this like conversation all the time. And I'm just like, how do I negotiate this? How do I, talk to people and so I'm still learning. And I feel like I've been listening to a lot of podcasts. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos on people that have shared, sort of their ways of being successful in negotiating these things. But it's a long process. It's not like right away we can be like, I want this much and people are going to give it to you, right? That's why I'm saying like this year has been a lot of saying no's and a lot of turning down opportunities that I otherwise would have taken with the pay cut, but I can't. Like, it's just not possible, and it's going through, honestly, it's sitting here with you doing these podcasts that have made me realize too, this is truly what I think. Because we try to be as authentic as possible and we're giving you what truly we're feeling at the moment. And it's reminded me that, yes, you're right. We don't charge enough. We're not expensive. But like, what is the most effective way in order to get to the goal that we want to without just, losing opportunities all the time. And so, that's something that I'm still learning how to do right now.
Yeah, that's definitely a really, really hard, I think it's a hard task for most consultants, designers, or freelancers. I mean, I know this is not a pricing episode, but maybe just to sort of add to what you're saying. So for me, the way that I deal with pricing these days is that, so like I'm currently working on like 2 different proposals. And me, like I am not shy about asking like what I'm worth, because I think at the end of the day, I think, and again, not that it's easy. Like I've really had to like learn to come to terms with me sitting with that feeling of I might lose this job and that's okay. Because again, time is our most valuable commodity. And to your point of if you were to accept a lower paying gig, you miss out on the opportunity of doing a higher paying gig should that come along, you know? And so, but in order for you to actually like even have an opportunity to take a better gig, you have to say no to the not so great gigs. And so for me, when I work on proposals, every proposal I work on, and I'm very honest about this, I'm always ready to walk away from it. I have no attachment to it because I always think about it. It's like, this is a business and this is a business transaction. You are free to go price it out with somebody else. And I'm not saying this from like an arrogant or cocky perspective. I'm really saying this like, I invite you to compare different artists and compare like what you're getting from different artists, and then decide for yourself like what's important to you.
Totally.
You know, and so whenever I make these proposals and it comes to pricing, I absolutely 100% charge what I think I'm worth, and even sometimes I'm looking at it, I'm calculating it based off of my like hourly rate. I'm like, yeah, this is kind of crazy. And like numbers wise, that's kind of a sticker shock. If I were to see it, like that's a lot, you know? But I have a base of where I'm getting this cost from. So I'm not just throwing crazy numbers at the wall to see if it sticks. And so if it doesn't stick, it's okay. I'm okay. Like I'm ready to walk away from this. So I think that might be a helpful mentality for some listeners out there when they're pricing their projects, because again, you know, if you're going in there with the idea that like you have to have this, then it shows, you know, that desperation, right? And so I think, so maybe think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I always say like it's a good reminder to each other too that what we do is quite unique in the industry and where our value lies. Like I think understanding what your value is a really important thing, because like you're saying, you can go out and try to find somebody else, but nobody does something quite like what we do, you know? And there's always somebody out there who, and I think I tend to forget that. I feel like sometimes I base my value on like the work that I have put out and then the work that other people have done too. And I forget that what I find really satisfying and what drives my work is to be able to do something that other people haven't done yet. And so there's a lot of R&D time that goes into that. And there have been companies that I've worked with that have valued me for that and paid me for that. And I think that's really important. That's what differentiates me from, say, another customizer who can just look at something and paint it. You know, we can both do a really good character work or good paint job, you know, at the end of the day. But it's really like the experience that I have in doing novel things that sets me apart. And I think it's just that reminder again to myself that I need to be more confident in what I'm worth. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, it's hard. And like to add on top of that, I think there's also, you know, it's not just the pay, but it's also the types of jobs that are coming your way. You know, it's like what you're saying. There's this like FOMO of, oh, if I don't do this, then, or if I do this, this could lead to something else. Somebody could see this and I could get connections, all of this stuff. But then walking away from jobs that don't coincide with your goal, that's something that has been really hard too. But at the end of the day, it's always a good thing, because the more of one type of job that you're doing, the more business is going to be like of the same calibers, of the same genre that you're doing, right? So being able to like walk away from that is hard, but it's worth it at the end. I think. Yeah. But so how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling better.
Yeah.
You know, again, I'm hanging in there. You know, I'm doing good, honestly. Like most days, like actually, you know, not even most days, but like every day, I'm super grateful for the life I have. You know, yes, like it's hard, but it's hard compared to what? Like it's so subjective, you know? It's like, it's not that hard compared to a war-torn country, you know? And so it's like, my life is good. Like my life is amazing, you know? So if this is the hard that I have to bear, like hit me, you know?
That's what I'm saying. Sometimes I feel like our perspective is skewed to complaining or saying something's difficult, saying something's hard, but would you have it any other way? Or yes, it's hard, but it's like it's part of the process.
Yeah.
Part of what we are trying to do is overcoming these difficulties. And it's not just about, you know, sitting here and like, Anne, we talk about this all the time. If we weren't doing this, we would have a nail salon, right?
Girl,
And so, like, if we wanted to do something easy, I feel like the appeal of to us at least, what we are doing is that not a lot of people in this world are doing what we're doing. And we secretly like that, you know? Like, we really enjoy doing things that really, very, very few people in the world are doing. And we thrive off of that energy. So we're asking for it. Like, yes, things are difficult, but we don't choose, like, I mean, easily, you and I, we could color block for days, you know, we could just mix and match things, but that's not the challenge to us. And it's like, although there's so many things that are difficult, we ask for it. We're allergic to easy. That's what we like.
that's what we do.
We're such difficult people.
That's what we do. That's what we
like
do.
it.
That's what we do.
Yeah. And and it's so funny. I feel like I know there's like this built up pressure, but from the outside, I truly, genuinely feel that you're doing everything right. And I think
Thanks, babe.
it's like you're on the right path. It might seem like it's a very long journey. It might seem like, you know, things aren't moving fast enough. But to me, I honestly think like this is what you're meant to do. And in 10 years, you're going to look back and be like, yeah, I mean, I don't understand why I doubt it. Like, this is early. This is so early. But in 10 years, you're just going to be like, yeah, I couldn't have imagined myself doing anything differently. And like, even now, like, if you're thinking about what you would be doing otherwise, what would I be doing otherwise? I'd be like, I don't know, pipetting things into test tubes.
I would kind of still be able to do what I'm doing, but somebody else is paying me to do it full time.
Yes,
which is
but
nice.
then like you can't do everything that you want. You know, you're not.
I'm signing my life away.
Yeah,
basically.
you're signing your life away. You're
Yeah.
doing things that somebody asked you to do, and like, I feel like just knowing that is comforting at the end of the day.
Girl, tempting though. I'm telling you, if you know what I'm talking about.
I know
But
what you're talking
anyways,
about. I know exactly what you're talking about.
but if you like this episode,
Yes, make sure to like, follow, subscribe. It really helps us out, helps other people out. And also it tells us like which episodes you like so that we can do more of these things and talk about these things with you. So thank you so much for watching and listening and chilling with us as always.
we
And
appreciate you
so much.
So much.
So much. And
All right.
we'll
Until next
see
time.
you guys next time. Bye.